Good evening. We'll now bring the Caribou Council meeting to order. Tonight's meeting is a public forum for the 2018 budget, and the city manager and department heads will be presenting the budgets tonight so that everyone has an idea of what's there. So if there's any questions from anybody in the audience or anybody on council, they'll be able to ask them here tonight. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Manager Marker.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to give some quick talking points, I guess, to set the stage for all of this, and apologize for those who may be watching on television. We'll make sure that some of these PowerPoint slides get out so they have it. And just wanted to quickly walk through the budget process for those who are here and watching. Back in September, we started the process for the 2018 fiscal year, and our fiscal year is January to December 31st. We had the department heads start to pull together their anticipated expenses and capital improvements and get that turned into me. We also prepared the three-quarter year budget for this year just to know where we were at on our standing. Starting in October, the department heads submitted their information to me, and I've met with them some more than once, going through their line item requests. And we've also had a meeting between the city council and the department heads where they presented to you some of their major issues that they're looking to face in 2018. And now we've compiled the draft budget. Again, taking the feedback we've received from the council and department heads, and tonight is the public forum, as you mentioned, Mayor, where we present a draft budget and allow the council and the public to share their ideas, their concerns, and that will be incorporated into, I anticipate, 1 to 3 city council work sessions, depending on how much time that you want as a council to refine the budget and go through all the line items, and we could have even more discussion with the department heads if you want. And November 13th, we've scheduled a formal public hearing on the budget as required by the charter. And then in December, we have to formally adopt the expense and capital budgets. Interestingly enough, the revenue budget does not get approved by the city until April, and so there's a little bit of a gap there. We do start to look at the revenues at this point just to make sure we're generally in line, but the city's charter right now requires that the expense and capital be approved by the end of this fiscal year, and then the revenues budget would get approved as we come closer to coordinating with the school district and the county and the state on their budgets, and have a better idea of where everything sits next roughly April. So that being said, just a quick overview. Tonight again is the public forum, and operationally, again, this is just a very high level view. The proposed budget for operations is looking at about a 6% increase over 2017. And when I say increase, I guess I should clarify or stipulate that. Right now, as the department heads and myself have put this information together, we recognize there are policy issues that need to be set. There's priorities that need to be set by the public and the city council. And so what you're looking at tonight is, in a sense, if we can get everything done that we really think needs to be done, or we want to have done, to continue with the operation of the city, this is how much that's probably going to cost. But we recognize there may need to be some paring down, and that's the prerogative of the city council for you to take this information tonight and the input you receive and do as you wish with that. Wanted to highlight that out of the 19 operational funds, there are 5 that we're right now projecting to come in less than this year's budget. So that would include the Nylander Museum, the General Assistance Program, Fire and Ambulance, Emergency Management, and the Caribou Trailer Park. The significant change there, dollar-wise, would be in the Fire and Ambulance. But the greatest percentage change difference is the Nylander Museum, which is a 46% reduction. And we plan to go into each of these in a little more detail after my presentation. And then to highlight the funds, there we would see an increase. Would include general government of 37%, tax assessing 51%, and that's primarily with the wages and the potential new zoning administrator being involved with the tax assessing department. The airport 18.7%, insurance and retirement costs going up almost 28%, and then we have an unclassified fund which again we'll get into tonight, but is looking at almost an 85% increase. So for our enterprise funds, these are funds that we know revenue will be coming in and basically compensating or paying its own way. So that includes the city's economic development fund, primarily receiving funds through the tax increments finance districts that we have. The housing fund, and Section 8 are primarily federally funded programs and services that we provide in Caribou. And then we have a snow trail maintenance fund, which is primarily a state fund that helps out with the economic and recreation activities surrounding sledding in the wintertime. The capital improvements budget, very high level. The request this year would include a 22% increase in capital expenditure, and we'll get into those a little bit more tonight. Overall, between the enterprise operations and capital, the total fund you're looking at is just a little over a 7% increase, or manager adjusted budget of $11,024,234 and some change. Just to highlight the biggest differences between this budget, the draft budget we've prepared, and the current budget year that we're in. So the difference we're looking at, if the city was to maintain the same budget that we have for this year, for next year, you're looking at $727,724. Full-time wages account for 40% of that difference. And I had a conversation with the mayor earlier today that I understand there may be some concern or some confusion about what was intended to be implemented with the last salary review process and what has been implemented or what is anticipated to be implemented. And I would recommend, for the sake of the meeting tonight, so we don't get bogged down in just that one item, that maybe be a work session discussion. But for the budget tonight, the numbers that we have would indicate about 40% of this difference is in that wages. It's interesting to note that health insurance between this year and next year appears to be reduced by about $80,000. The health insurance costs per plan are going up, and that's as much as 4 to 8% depending on the department, but overall within the city that cost is going down, and that's primarily because of the type of plans that we're using and the employees electing to have health insurance or not. I state that correctly? Okay. Also, we received numbers this morning, and so on the workers' compensation fund requirements, and it appears that is going to go up $76,535, or almost 11% of that difference in the increase. Most of that, we did have some unfortunate accidents this year, and so our workers' compensation is reflecting that accordingly. Also right now on the operational side, we've we've put into this budget an additional half-mile of paved road in the city, which is roughly $50,000. So that would be in addition to the 2.5 miles that Public Works currently provides between asphalt and chip sealed roads. The remaining large ticket items come in capital maintenance. We're looking at needing some improvements to the buildings, economic development efforts, including the Bird's Eye property cleanup, and looking to fund that over the next 2 to 3 years, and also some capital equipment for Public Works that we need to be looking at. I know there was some concern earlier this year about the cost of power going up. I have already shared this with the mayor, and it is in the information provided to you that we received a notice from Emera that they wanted a 12% increase in their revenues, and they were anticipating only the residential customers would see a 4 to 5% increase. So the fear was having to put the rest of that increase on the backs of government and commercial users. In looking at their costs and the cities, we also found that Algonquin Power, who's our supplier of power, they were projecting a reduction in their cost this year. And so our overall power cost, while we initially had a 20% increase in the numbers, we've dropped that back down to, we think, is a more reasonable 6% because of the billing that we receive both from Emera and from Algonquin Power. So with that, that's kind of the highlights, the major items, things to be looking at. And with that, we can just get right into the funds. So I'd like to start with fund number 10, which is our general government fund. We've already again touched on the wages, and we understand that there's some issues there we need to look at as far as the cost of living and the STEP policy or program that was, I believe, was implemented last year. Right now, the main thing to point out with the salaries in general government is that we are going to be moving the ambulance billing personnel from fire and EMS under general government. And so that's one of the primary reasons why we're showing a 20% increase in salaries for that line item. Council salaries would stay the same. That's depending on the number of meetings that you have. Office supplies, you can see, would be a large increase of 111%, and that is primarily due to the ambulance billing costs being now rolled into the general government rather than being over in the fire and EMS. Otherwise, you can see through office supplies, there's a general reduction. We do anticipate some increased amount to postage this year. The planning board's been working on rezoning portions of the city, and our notice requirements are such that we'd have to send out some mass mailings to a good portion of the entire city for that. As far as the legal fees, we're just looking at, we just trended that out and proposed a $20,000 for legal fees. The audit, I know there was a question earlier posed to me about the audit. We're showing right now, I should say that the typical audit expense is about $16,000, but that is going up this year by another $500. We've budgeted into this line item an additional $30,000, which would be used to look at a consultant group to come in and help us look at our fee structures and making sure we're getting the fees that we need for all of the services that we provide. So our expenses are being covered that way, but also looking at possibly projecting out into the future, looking at reasonable expenses and revenue trends over time so we can get a better snapshot of what could happen to the city's budget in the future rather than just looking at what's happened in the past and trying to trend forward. And so that's something that, again, it's been put in there, but something to consider by the council. Computer maintenance, some of the software that we have is increasing in price. And so we've increased the computer maintenance line item. The professional dues is going up, and a lot of that is the computer services that we receive. The travel expenses and training, the travel expenses for mileage, lodging, conference fees, we've dropped that significantly this year. We don't anticipate any national conferences being attended, but the training and education budget has gone up, not in the same amount, but we anticipate some more local training opportunities because of not having a lot of travel expenses. The elections, proposed to increase that budget by almost 38%, and also the contracted expenses related to the clerk's office going up by 50%. Jane can maybe address those if you have questions that way. The next major item that we have, health insurance for general government. We have an increase of 30.5%, and that's based on the health insurance rates that we receive back. But also, again, because we've rolled the ambulance billing personnel into here, their health insurance costs also have an increase into this general government item. Other than that, the Social Security and city retirement are reflective of the wages that are being proposed. We do have some vehicle repairs that are 2 vehicles that are being shared administratively are getting older. We expect those costs to go up a little bit this year. And the bad debt allowance would be a new line item for general government, and that's to handle the ambulance billing processes that they have and the bad debt that we need to address there. So that's general government. I don't know if you've got any questions or thoughts on that.
Do you have any questions or anything they don't understand or like to clarify?
I'm just curious, and I don't know if we went over it, but why did you move the ambulance to the general government? Just for easier...
The ambulance billing side?
Yeah, the ambulance billing, yeah.
Because it's a financial...
Okay.
Basically arm of the city, and so I wanted to make sure it's underneath the finance director rather than the fire and EMS director department.
The transfer of all the amounts from the ambulance, from fire and ambulance to general government, are there increases in those compared to last year, or are they basically the same amount?
We actually reduced the office supplies a little bit, figuring that we have a more pooled resource there. So the office supplies went down, and everything else stayed the same.
The other thing, I mean, I noticed that in all the departments, Social Security and city and state retirement, and Social Security seems to be up tremendously in all of the areas, but the city and state retirement doesn't seem to be up much.
Yeah, I asked Wanda that same question. You want to address that?
Yeah.
At the mic, please.
When I was looking back at what was done last year, at the wage schedule that was done, that was prepared by Austin, he included wages and Social Security when he was calculating the retirement amount, and so he shouldn't have had that column in there. So that's why you're seeing a difference this year.
All right.
Makes sense.
And the only other question I have is on that bad debt allowance, whether this is where it belongs or whether it should be as a minus on the revenue side.
Okay.
In the revenue budget. My only worry about it being here is we lose sight of it. Anybody got anything else? Carry on.
Okay. The next fund, Fund 11, this is again one of our enterprise funds, so the expenses associated with this generally come in from the tax increment finance district. What you'll have in here, half of my wages and all of Christina's wages come out of here, or all of her wages come out of here, half of mine. We have 0% overtime, so we're taking overtime out of this. The office supplies. One of the things we wanted to bring up in here is under the advertising budget. The comment that we have here is relative to the county chamber of commerce, and we've had some discussions with the chamber. They've indicated that they would like Caribou to be contributing about $11,000 as a kind of a partnership in the chamber that would go also to what Presque Isle is providing and other cities are providing. They've indicated that they're willing to consider the services we're providing to the chamber as in kind rather than a cash out. For instance, we've talked with the chamber about hosting a major trade show in the recreation center, which they figure would be equivalent of about $6,000 of savings to them, and they would deduct that from the amount that Caribou could provide. Other than that, the $5,000 would go basically toward additional events, name recognition. It's an advertising budget for the most part. That's what it is. The concern that the chamber has is they're getting pushback from the other cities that are contributing to the chamber and saying if Caribou's not going to contribute any cash toward the chamber activities, why are we including them in all of our flyers and advertisements that we do, and why are we even hosting anything in Caribou? We've also heard from some of the business owners they're a little concerned that the city not participating in the Chamber of Commerce is an indication that the city is not really supportive of its own businesses and the businesses in the area. So at this point in the budget, we've included about a $5,000 allotment that would go toward participation in the chamber and those activities there. As we go down through here, we have a GIS license. This is the computer-based mapping system that we utilize that can be used to look at parcels and available parcels, development potential of parcels. And so we've purchased a license this year that I'm using, and there's an annual maintenance cost associated with that. There are professional dues that we're looking at to include with, for instance, part of my association with the International City Managers Association, American Planning Association. We're also looking at Christina getting involved with the International Economic Development Council and also Main Street, which is a national organization dealing with Main Street economic development and ways of revitalizing downtowns. Again, in the travel expense budget, we have a reduction in meals, lodging, and conference fees. There is a slight increase of mileage. Right now, we don't have a vehicle that is specific to economic development purposes. And I know that Christina's been utilizing her personal vehicle for a lot of things and not submitting reimbursement requests, but she should be. And so that's why there's an increase to that line item of just allocating some funds now toward her use of her personal vehicle that way. The health insurance here again, this is one, again overall on the city it's down, but this is one fund that is getting hit a little bit harder with the new health insurance costs, almost a 210% increase. And part of that is the funds again that are being selected and the costs associated with those. We've already talked about the Social Security and the city retirement. The revolving loan fund, I wanted to discuss this one with the council carefully. Over the past 3-4 years, we've been putting $50,000 into a revolving loan fund. That money has been taken, it's been budgeted in the expense, but then it's been pulled out and put into a reserve account. So right now we have about $200,000 sitting in a revolving loan fund. And I guess I would suggest that maybe we don't need to put any additional funds into there for right now, because it's not being utilized. We can be doing more with it, but that's a significant amount for right now for some small loans that similar to what the CEGC is providing. And so I've zeroed out that request this year, not adding another $50,000 to that account.
The comment states we have two funds here.
We do.
I guess my question, because the $50,000 just kind of rings a bell, that my understanding is we give the CEGC $50,000 a year.
No, that money's sitting in a reserve account if they choose to or ask for us, you know.
But it is for them to use.
Correct.
And so right now we've pooled together $200,000.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, but I think there is an agreement that it will be $50,000 a year.
Okay.
That goes to them, so. I mean, we can check, but I just,
I've never seen that, so.
I'm sure it's their understanding.
Could you see if there's any documentation supporting that, please? Thank you.
And I don't, where they haven't utilized it and we've just been, stockpiling it, so to speak, maybe we don't need to worry about that, but we'll take a look at it. Under contracted services, we received a letter from NMDC requesting that we pay $13,730 toward their services. We budgeted for it last year. That, as you know, NMDC is a regional group that looks at economic development issues and provides some services, and that fee is based on our population within the county relative to other cities that are also utilizing that service. Under the broadband study, last year there was $50,000 budgeted for the broadband study. The council directed the staff not to pursue that, but we have entered into an agreement with a company that is going to look at our franchise fees relative to cable, and that's $10,000, and so we've included that in this budget.
while we're right there, can we make arrangements to meet with him again and talk about some of the things we'd like to see when he does this?
On the franchise fee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Renewal.
I know as far as just an update on that, he has contacted the cable companies and they've exchanged some information. And so,
Well, I think one of the things, just quickly, that I think we want to know is, what areas aren't serviced now, and how do we go about getting them serviced when we negotiate with the cable company? So, and I'm guessing they might even have that information on hand. Sewell might even have that. So,
we can talk about that. As was mentioned in the retreat, there's $10,000 in there for a new possible rental assistance program, looking at some new downtown infrastructure improvements. And instead of having $20,000 in for video ads and marketing, we've cut that down to only $6,000. We feel we can do that in-house. As far as the projects or major festival events that we're looking at for this year, continuing a winter carnival, Thursdays on Sweden, Heritage Days. We've talked about maybe reducing the amount of money going into that, but increasing the amount of money going into Caribou Days. We wouldn't have a moose lottery this year, and it's been suggested that we don't have a New Year's Eve party next year. They don't tend to be visited very well, and some discretion funds as far as a new maybe wine and dine activity or additional funds to help the Halloween activities out has been proposed. The biggest expense item that we have under economic development is slum and blight removal. last year's budget was only $20,000, but we're looking at increasing that to $105,000 this year. Again, primarily for the Bird's Eye site cleanup. Looking at some properties on Patton Street that the city now owns that need to be cleaned up. And also looking at the last item there, the new fire station, looking at possibly doing a study, a site design study for the whole property, not just what's been contemplated for the new fire station, and maybe including a market analysis of the viability of that property for uses beyond just the public safety. So that's
Quick question on Bird's Eye. We have one grant already that we're receiving.
$100,000.
Have we made applications for the other grants yet or not?
We
That site?
We are working on a brownfield cleanup
Yes.
grant that actually on your next agenda there will be a public hearing that we're required to do in order to give the public opportunity to comment on applying for federal funds, federal brownfield funds. And that potentially could be another $200,000 or even maybe $400,000 toward the project.
If we get that, and I mean, I know,
If we get
understand we don't know, but if we get that, I would guess we were not be looking at any big expense in here.
Right now, the projected cleanup cost for Bird's Eye is over $500,000
That's about what we would have.
if all the grants come in, right? And of course, we'd have to have our own match to those funds, but
In kind.
it could be in kind, yes.
All right.
Are we gonna meet the deadlines for the brownfield grants this year?
We
So that
should.
they get submitted on time and not missed?
We should. We've laid out the calendar for that.
Hmm?
We have the calendar for what needs to happen when with that.
Okay, thank you.
And it's back at the chamber. Do you know how many paid members from Caribou there are? They're paying dues to Prescott.
I don't have that readily available right now, but I do have the information in my office.
Okay. So I'd like to know how much is being paid by the members, you know, to them, because if they're going to pay dues to the chamber, the area Chamber of Commerce, they should be getting something for the money that they're paying, not necessarily from the city, but they should be included in their maps and things like that. They should be getting something from their dues as well. And I think the dues used to be around $200 a year or so. So I'm not sure how many, but I'd like to know how many paid members there are into there.
Okay.
Hmm?
Any other questions on economic fund? The next fund is what we've previously called the Chamber Fund, but it really is now the Nylander Museum Fund. The biggest differences in this fund this year are in the previous budget, the council had budgeted for janitorial services in the building. This year, rather than doing janitorial services, we've recommended budgeting 4 hours per week for a janitor to come into the building and help out there. And then the other major ticket item for this, or the biggest change, I think, would be under the building maintenance fund. Last year we budgeted $13,000 to replace the porch and the ramp off the back of the building. That work has been done this year by our public works crew. They've done a nice job of putting some rock and ramps out there. It's not quite done yet, but they're taking care of that. And so we have reduced that to only $3,000 for building maintenance. We recognize there is some siding issues that need to be taken care of. And so that's why you still have a $3,000 in there for that.
And a gas line too.
All done. And did that today.
Thank you.
Is there a railing on that ramp? Or is there going to be a railing on it?
There won't be no need. You're at earth level. You have a 5-foot walkway, you have a 2-foot buffer on each side, there's nothing to fall off.
So you're going to go up, right?
Yep.
On the ramp. The wheelchair, what if the wheelchair goes off the side of the ramp into the rocks?
But there's earth on each side. So that's where it changes it.
Okay.
What does ADA?
You're telling me you couldn't get a wheelchair wouldn't go off with the ramp, is that what you're saying, basically?
What did the ADA say?
Oh, well, so Dennis went through that earlier, and he and I had the conversation about what could or could not happen. So I know if it's in a ramp that they can fall off and have railings, but this is wide enough that there's no way to fall off.
Yeah, but what can happen will happen.
So
If the ADA recommends railings, then we're doing the project. That's the time that we're supposed to be doing. That's all. That's why I'm asking. That's all. Okay.
If there are railings, then the width of the path has to be wider. But if it's just a path that's on the ground, railings are not required unless you have a drop off on the sides of it. So,
That's all I want to do.
Yep.
Just get
I
another.
mean, we certainly could look at installing a handrail alongside it, but it's
it can be added out.
If it's not required, then as long as we're in the guidelines for the ADA, then we're fine. Okay. But somebody in the audience had.
I just had a question whether or not the slope is greater or less than 5%. If it's less than 5%, then it's not a ramp, technically. But I wasn't sure what the slope was, so I was just curious.
maximum.
It's a 1 to 12.
Wonderful, so it's 8%. So technically it is a ramp, but I'm not up on the particular rules you're talking about regarding width and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's maximum slopes that we have to maintain with the 1 to 12 over so many inches and feet.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to know.
Yep.
I just hope you don't have anybody suing you because you don't have a railing in the winter time, especially.
We can certainly add a railing in the future.
I'm just, my only concern is that it's not a place where an accident's going to happen. I mean, if we've taken the proper steps and it's legal and everything the way it is, fine. But I just don't want to have a scenario where we do get sued or whatever here. So
It wouldn't be difficult to put some posts in the ground and run some planks between it and create a handrail of sorts. So.
is it paved already?
Pardon?
Is it paved?
It would have been done last week had we not lost 2.5 days of rain, but I suspect that tomorrow we'll finish up with the rock wall, backfilling. I think Wednesday we'll be doing the asphalt and the stone that's on top. That'll complete for us.
Looks nice.
It's coming well.
Any other questions on Chamber and Islander?
I have a few,
Yep.
probably directed to Gail. Yearly attendance.
Is it our turn to speak?
Well, I've got several questions that I told you I would be asking you, so
Oh, I know.
if you, I don't, it's
We're
up
ready.
to-
We just don't know when we're supposed to.
you'll
go.
probably give me the answers I want if you want to.
Dennis?
It's up to the mayor when you want to entertain public comment.
Yeah, look, we'll take public comment.
Okay.
She knows what I was going to ask.
We will
yeah.
be limited. But we will take public
Oh, 2 hours? Get up here. I'm not doing this alone. Gee whiz. Okay. Yes. Okay, hold on to that.
Are you just going to answer the questions you were asked, or?
We're going to give you a full overview very quickly. Okay? But to add a little levity to what can be rather boring, we're going to crow about what we've accomplished. Oh, come on, that was good. Or we want to let people know that they're raving about the Nylander. Okay. Go.
Where do you want
Do
me
you
to
want to start
go?
with the questions?
Okay.
Yeah, go
I
that.
wanna
Do
know
that.
what
And
your
that
yearly
could take care of a lot of
attendance-
this.
Okay.
This past year, how many people have you had there?
So far, the number's above 600. By the end of the year, we should be close to 7, which is double last year's.
And you're still open like 3 hours a week, basically?
Well, during the summer, we were open Saturday and Sunday.
We still are.
We still are, except for this month that is ending, because we forgot some people work, and the only time they have to hunt is on Saturdays. So the sign will change this month, because we will continue to be open Saturday and Sunday. And Debbie is starting a program for kids on Saturday mornings, in addition to the other hours on Saturday. And it's
Explore your own backyard. I'm going to start off with one Saturday a month with the younger kids. And we have a sand spice collection is what we call it, that Kirk Tibbetts gave us, of sand and soil from all over the world and all the different states. And I thought we could start having the kids talk about that. And I brought soil from the Fish River Lakes, because I live at Cross Lake part of the time, and,
so in
and
other
they
words,
can collect stuff.
It's getting kids to explore their own backyard, and we do plan on expanding that in the summer.
Okay, and you said you had donations and proceeds from some of the sales, and you were going to get a figure of how what your revenue was.
We have donations in kind, as
Right.
well as a few other donations. The funding, the Friends, which is a 501c3, we now have a president for that also, is about $1,500, and those are memorials for display cases. The museum has received about $300. We haven't really pushed fundraising because we've been working on what you actually want, what you wanted us to reach a goal this year. And so we're going to use that $300 for programming needs and equipment. We also need to know that the building needs some work, such as new lighting and such as new windows. And so we are this month in bringing to November's meeting figures for the expense of that and writing out grants for that. One would be the STK Foundation, the Stephen and Tabitha King Foundation. And Kate, who is on her way frantically, she was held up late at work, found another avenue that we can go. We know that you are giving us approximately 0.15, and we realize that we do need to take on more of the funding. And so if we can get grants for this to upkeep the building and improve the building, that's what we want to do. We have memorials. Several people from the Nylander Ketch Museum family have passed away, and they are trying to give us money to replace some of those display cases. So that,
and you mentioned to me that you had a reunion, a family reunion.
actually we had 2.
Did you charge to use the building for this?
No, because it's the Nylander family. That's the Nylander Ketch family.
Okay, so
And so they're bringing everyone in, and they have brought more people in.
Okay. And the phone and the internet.
Yeah.
We need to speak about the phone.
Yeah, we do.
It hasn't. I don't think it works anymore.
Well, don't you have
No.
cell phones and stuff? I mean, can't you like use do we even have to pay for a phone in there and internet?
To have a landline is important for many reasons. What the question I had about the phone is, we don't know whether there are 1 or 2 lines coming in. We don't know whether it's a Nylander line and also a chamber line. We still get calls for the chamber because it's still listed as that. So my question to you about that, Joan, was how do we find out whether we have 1 or 2 lines? Because we only need the 1 line.
Well, I'm having a hard time justifying for even 3 hours a week or even 6 hours a week the internet and the phone that perhaps could be done by a cell phone and internet on your own internet at home, like for the Facebook page or something like that. I think that's a fairly high amount to pay. What am I looking at here? 640, and the internet. No, I don't let's see, we got 720 for that short amount of time. I mean, that's just...
Well, that's when we're open officially. There are times when we will go in and we're there working, and the library, okay, the museum is open, and we're working at the same time. We also have volunteers come in, and they're working also.
And how many hours a week is that?
Oh dear goodness,
I didn't bring that.
I didn't either.
'Cause we have a paper we fill out every time we come in to do something.
We figured it was about 1,400 hours. I do
The
volunteer work. I do a lot of the work at home, and when it comes to a landline, I wonder if that's a safety issue also, because cell phones die. Cell phones die. I know mine has died there, and if there was an emergency, I wouldn't be able to call out.
And the phone also has a built-in, what do you call it? The recorder, the
answering machine.
The answering machine.
And we
built into it, and we have a thing posted on the sign out front to call for tours or to be open for different groups coming through or at other times.
That's one of the numbers that teachers call.
All right, anybody else got any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
The next budget, or the next fund, is the health and sanitation, number 17. And there's just a slight increase to the tri-community landfill expense, 0.3%. We anticipate that basically it's keeping it the same as what it was this year. And then we get into unless you have any questions about the funding with the tri-community, or any of those other items on health and sanitation.
Why don't we have Social Security under that column?
Because we do pay the health officer $500 out of that fund, and so that's the Social Security.
Sorry.
And it's not much, $36.
Any other questions on health and sanitation? Municipal building.
Okay. The major items in here, we have, we've already talked about the electricity, the Lions building, looking at increasing that by $500 for just general maintenance. The other items that are going up, primarily electricity related, you have the building maintenance under 031. We do anticipate needing to replace some of the lights out front and changing some of those things out. We're hoping that we can replace the backup power in this building this fiscal year. If not, we are showing it rolling over there, but if we can take care of that this year, we'll obviously deduct that from this line item. The boiler maintenance, we're reducing that slightly. The indication is Chief Gagan said that it was inspected and not expected to last the winter, I think was the terms that were used.
We hope.
We hope it will last the winter, but the boiler in this building is probably going to go out. And so we've built into the capital an item for that.
How many boilers are here? They took one out when they put the pellet furnace in?
No. We still have two.
So there's still 2 oil-fired boilers and 1 pellet furnace? Okay.
And the pellet furnace has not been working for the last 2 years.
Are there any pellets in the
hopper?
hopper?
I think it's full.
I think it's full.
I know that Gary's talked about siphoning out the pellets to use over at the recreation center because theirs is working.
The library too. And siphon ours as well. Doesn't work. It helps for
So.
Karen.
I thought we had those all gone through and we got them working.
That was certainly
Talk
what
about
was,
circuit boards or something?
And then it became a software problem with the motherboard. The motherboard kept burning up. No more replacements. So that's been the last issue.
Ours is seized up.
So are there any,
is yours working at the fire hall?
Ours hasn't worked in 2 years, it's seized up. I had it fixed once, and it was ready to get it fixed, and it seized up again with the motherboard on.
That's not even safe.
I quit making the payments. Let them take them back, give them the finance company.
the company that put them in there got their money back though?
Well, we still have payments on it for the next 5 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Are we saving enough money with our fuel oil to pay our bill?
I'd have to look into that. I doubt it.
I mean, as advanced as our electronic world is, maybe there's somebody out there that might be able to fix them with a generic type motherboard or something so they'll function. Just, that's something you could look into without spending a lot of money.
Unfortunately, it wasn't a generic system.
No, I know that.
So that's,
but I'm just saying that, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Build one and copy it.
So those are the main items under the municipal buildings. If you have any questions, we're getting through things now faster. Under general assistance, Jane, you want to take that one?
Good evening. As you look at the general assistance budget here, there's very little changes on supplies or on small increase in training for next year, and miscellaneous. We've had an increase in our program that we use, the tracker. It's gone from $75 a month for maintenance to $80, and I back up in a cloud, and that's $65 a year. It's pretty straightforward. I have still asking for some non-reimbursable general assistant funds, and you will note that I haven't spent any of them yet, but I still like having that as a tool if I have a client that is better served, and I'm able to help them along their way with some non-reimbursable general assistance funds. So I'd still like that tool in my toolbox. The state, I've reduced that from 1,000 to 750 because I believe in 2 years' time for Connor Township, I've had one client, one time. So very little expense there for Connor. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item is tax assessing. You may recall from the overview, this was one of the funds that had the greater percentage increases. Most of that coming because of the new zoning administration position that would be there full-time.
So I'm here for any questions that you may have.
Somebody define zoning administration assistant or whatever.
Well, it's kind of a fancy word for a code officer and a planner. We just think it sounds jazzier. It has a Z. That's a kind of a snappy letter.
In fact, we reviewed we had 3 applicants for that position. We've advertised it, and we had 3 applicants. We reviewed those today in the job description. Basically, you're looking at somebody that can take on the planning board, zoning issues, the site plan review for new commercial developments, multifamily developments, somebody that can be a backup to the building department, can help out with economic development reviews and getting information out and being a face to the public that way, and generally handling a lot of the things that aren't getting done the way they need to at this point with that aspect of the city's.
And we actually had very good applicants for the position, so. And the increases in those lines are all directly related to adding that position.
So what's the total cost to add the position?
Manager, take it away.
At this point, it's, let's see,
80 to 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
80 to 100,000.
80 to 100,000. Yeah. If all the changes are related to that. So, yeah.
Yep.
The position was advertised that the compensation would be based on qualifications, and so we haven't set a firm amount yet, but that would also adjust accordingly in the budget.
Any other questions on the tax assessing?
I hope you're not going up again this year, the taxes.
I hope so too.
Yeah, I think enough is enough. Personal opinion.
Anything else on the tax assessing department? Thanks, Penny.
Next one is housing.
Hi. The majority of the line items for the Caribou Housing Agency, you'll notice, went down or is projected to go down for next year. The only thing that may be going up is postage. We have to send out letters to a lot of our families multiple times, 3-4 times. The other thing that you'll notice is going up is some of my professional dues, as Sue and I are in, our memberships, directors along that line, and the other one is advertising. Besides that, everything else is going down pretty much. Any questions?
You know what the funding for next year is yet?
No. I'm going to guesstimate right now, it's about 75%, the same as we're getting right now.
Yes.
We're looking about this.
What are you getting?
I know, we're getting, and that's all HUD will tell me right now is 75%. They haven't given me the new number per family, but I'm going to guesstimate. If I had to guesstimate, it's going to probably be about the same, if not a little bit more.
What was your total authorization last year?
Total authorization that we received was 104.
Thank you.
That's another thing that's really gone up too, is Section 8 housing. And what they're doing to improve them is not a hell of a lot. Excuse my language, but it's not. That's all I have to say.
So noted. Any other questions for housing?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
The library.
Good evening, council members. Oh, can you hear me? I'll speak louder.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you can see with the budget, almost all the lines have no changes except for a few. The obvious one, of course, is health. Previous city manager Austin Blease thought that maybe the new director would need health coverage for a family, but that wasn't the case. It's just for me. So that's a significant drop. I spoke to Carl Grant, who does the human resources. So that's the number for 2018. Electricity, of course, that's just minor stuff. Goes up. Fuel. The big thing is that council knows that I did ask for a part-time person because we're getting very busy, but made recommendations that we look at tightening up the staff by opening up later. For now, we chose to open later on Thursday and Friday. Those are the most difficult days, certainly for my staff. Thursday's only one person in the morning, so we're doing that. But I want to be honest. If we can avoid that by bringing in some good trained people, we'll keep the hours the same. If not, we'll certainly do that, and that'll make our Thursday and Friday much better. It allows me to get my work done. You will see a significant increase in pay from the previous year. This refers to the 3.5% for non-union, as you can read on the notes, additional 2% step in grade for anniversary of employees. There are no new staffing. Again, reducing of library hours. It's temporary. If I have to do it, I will do it. If I don't, I won't. So really, it's a very small increase. I don't know how that's going to affect the taxes. It's a small increase. And lastly, kids are already happy. I keep the adults happy because those are the ones that come in asking me to help them fill out their resumes. So, I respect the council's decision and all this. I will say, lastly, as your city librarian, I was brought in by Austin Blease because of my background in archives, libraries, museum, and arts, and hoping to build the library. And I certainly hope that that can happen. It's difficult to build a library and not be able to then bring staff in as it grows. So it forces it to keep at a static level. And somebody like me with my background, it's difficult to do. But we'll do what we have to do to make things happen. But our users are more than children. Our users are unemployed people who come in trying to find work, and we help them fill their applications out. They use the computers. We have college students using online courses, so they use Blackboard, Moodle, and MOOC. So because of my background in education, I'm able to help them. So we're going to continue trying to build your library. We've been very successful. It's not about quantity of programs, it's about quality of programs. So the budget is there. Is there any questions that you may have? I'd be happy to answer.
What's your estimated cost for the additional person?
I think the estimated cost I had, I want to say it was like $23,000. I think the first budget I put in was, I think it was $225,000 for regular pay. Right now it's $113,989. But we're very flexible. If I could bring in 3 hours a day person at 5 days, that's 15 hours. That's much less. I cannot convey to you that I'm going to build your library. It's going to grow. That's what I'm here for. So that's what the additional staffing was, to continue to provide services to our adults. So.
The only other question I really had was on the computer maintenance.
Yes.
We just bought I don't know what we bought, or you got them through a grant or whatever.
Yeah.
But you got a lot of new computers.
You know what? That was the Family Roderick Trust. And we needed to get computers that were newer and faster. They were giving us a lot of problems. So that came out of the trust fund there, because it's unrestricted.
My question. I know we got a lot of new equipment, and I wondered why the computer maintenance. I would have thought the computer maintenance would have gone down. You know, well,
that's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. We had a tough year this year. So yeah, I think that with these new computers, that's a reasonable request. I mean, Dennis, I think it's normally $2,000. Wait a minute, this is the maintenance. This is the maintenance with Oakleaf Systems. I think you're talking about Oakleaf. And that's.
Is this just a standard contract deal, Dennis? You know that.
As far as new computers that they're looking at, Oakleaf has them this year getting, I think it's two new computers, one for the circulation and one for the children's librarian.
Yeah, those
so
are the.
We'd have to look and see it. It may be a software.
How many computers did you put in?
We replaced the 6 old ones.
6?
Yep, and we brought in 8.
8.
And we used.
You got another one, didn't you, for teenagers or something?
I got 2, and that was through the Betterment Fund.
So you
it
basically have all new computers.
Yes, we do. That's right. That's why they're getting used quite a bit. Yes.
We probably just need to look at what are the software requirements with those computers. Is there an annual?
Yes, usually the issues we have with the computers is that some of the software doesn't do what it's supposed to do, so I'm always using my Mac to help people with converting PDF to doc file. That's something those don't have the software for that. That's just software-related issues.
Maybe take a look at it.
The computer maintenance line is, majority of it is the contract.
It is a contract. It's like 825 or 800. Yeah, it's a monthly contract. That's what makes it that way.
Anybody else got any questions on the library?
Are they going to get her a new assistant worker in the library?
Or what?
Are they going to get her a new person in the library?
I don't know yet. That's one thing that will be discussed throughout the budget process.
Okay, thank you.
The fire all out, Scott?
No.
Not yet?
Just about. I'm a little dry, so bear with me.
We would have excused you.
You know what? Face the music. It's easier just to get it done. I don't have any real changes, actually, because of the personnel changes with ambulance billing. We actually went down and stayed pretty static on most all the lines in our budget. The only things that we're really asking for this year fall into capital. Once we sell engine 1, we should be flat for the ambulance replacement. So asking for money for the remount, that'll be in 2 years, to start putting away for that, and money, $94,000 for turnout gear.
I'm going to ask one question right now, and actually it's going to refer to a lot of these budgets. And in regards to diesel fuel, gas, and heating oil. Have we used a number, projected number, per gallon on all of those items for next year? And has everybody used the same? Because when I go through here, I just see differences that, and I don't know what we've used, and I don't know how accurate that is, and I don't know where it came from. So sometime between now and when we go into this in a little more depth, I think we should have those numbers available of what we're using. I know a lot of the areas, we say there's a 5% increase. There's a 5% increase on last year's budget. But we're not going to spend anywhere near last year's budget in a lot of those areas. So to me, that's not a 5% increase. It's probably a 20% increase. But I would like to somehow or other ascertain what number we are going to use, and then everybody's using the same one in all of the departments. So.
I know the industry projections for gas next year is it will probably go up 4 to 5%. But I'll double check those other numbers.
But that doesn't mean we put our last year's budget up 4 or 5%, because our last year's budget was a lot higher than what the price has been. So, and I guess that's what I'm getting to, is if, this 4% increase, well, we look at how much that is, and then look at how many gallons we are using of gas, of diesel, of heating fuel, at the prices that are projected, and then that's what the budget is. There's nothing to do with what the cost was last year or what the budget was last year.
Can I piggyback on that?
Go right
When
ahead.
you put the new heating system in, did you put gas in?
We put propane in, yes, sir.
Propane?
Yeah.
And,
We've got yeah.
okay, so, you know, maybe we need to adjust that down instead of up. Because you're, may as well say, 10 months into the year and you've only used about 50% of your
Yes, sir.
request from last year. And of course now this encompasses some oil and some pellets, but the 3-year running average is only $21,000.
Yeah, and I only have...
And the market's been up and down there a little bit too, so...
Absolutely, and I only have
a line next to that for later in there.
I don't have any time with the propane. I've got last year when we got it installed, so
Yeah.
it's hard to put any trend to that at all. It's not fair. To run flat would probably be acceptable, but heating oil, we're not using any, very, very little heating oil. Propane's been a lot less all last year, so that's what we went with.
My other deal, and it's not so much to this year's budget, but to the existing budget that we're in right now. Paid call for the firefighters. We're not paying them or what?
Which line, Gary?
It's line 067. I'm looking at 2017.
The end of November.
They only get paid once a year.
Yeah, they get a $50 stipend in June or July whenever we get that out, and then at the end of the year they get paid a percentage of whatever calls that they made to how many calls we actually had.
I thought you were going to stop paying them quarterly.
No, EMS volunteers get paid weekly. We started paying, if you come in and you ride the truck, then we'll pay you regularly for that, and that's if you go down lower. 080. That line pays them a weekly paycheck if they come in. If they get more than 10 hours, we pay them if they come in and do EMS work.
Unemployment compensation, which is 035. How come there isn't anything there?
We're still waiting for numbers on that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see workman's comp is waiting.
Workers' comp, that one is, I've updated that one. I think you've probably got the one I printed off on Friday, but that new number for fire and EMS is $77,840. So it's gone up quite a bit.
Which line is that?
034.
You have turnout gear in your budget and you have a total of $14,000 in here.
That's for repairs or replacement of stuff that's ruined right now. Our turnout gear that we're currently running is 15 years old.
Okay, yeah, I understand that.
So that line could be dropped out if the council allowed us to do the purchase of the new in the capital. I could easily lower that line down.
And what's the ladder testing? I don't understand at all.
The aerial for the ladder truck, that has to be certified every year.
Not much I know, but I'm just saying that it's now $3,500.
Every year I've compensated that out of two lines, maintenance or this or that. It wasn't an actual what we were paying to have the ladder, the aerial certified every year. This is just a real number.
And the only other one that I would question to some degree is that vehicle repair. I know you say on your historic trend would be near 18,000, but newer fleet keeps number the same. I would think the newer fleet would have dropped the numbers. I mean, when I look at all the new vehicles we put in down there with fire trucks and everything else, I still think that's a high number.
I can work on that.
And I think I had the same thought process when I looked at tires, because I'm guessing all the new vehicles all came with new tires.
We go through a lot of tires.
I know you go through a number of tires on ambulances, fire trucks.
I only have one line. So if you figure if you ruin one tire on a fire truck, it's $1,200. One tire alone. And there's no real capital accounts that have money put away in case you ruin one or two tires.
I
They're
guess.
not making them like they used to either, Garrett. Tires.
And I don't know why we put Pappy's up so much all of a sudden from, we're up $240. We've had $100 in the budget for the last 2 years and never spent any according to this.
Which line was that?
077, 03.
The batteries?
I mean, it's not a big item, it's just, it just stuck out at me that, and then we said typical expenditures.
Oh.
Obviously, it isn't a typical expenditure.
Oh, I'll need to check the spreadsheet on that one. Right here.
What's the difference between paid call firefighters and paid call volunteers? Just out of curiosity.
Give me a number and go slow, because mine's a little smaller. Or let me borrow your glasses.
Well, paid call volunteers is 080.
080, okay, 080 is the line that we pay for EMS coverage. So if you come in and work today, or you come in and go to Bangor with them, I want to pay you that week. That's the line we dedicate to pay you your weekly pay. If you come in and if you volunteer, I mean, that way.
Only you get paid once a year. If you do work in this area,
no, well,
every week.
The top one up there is what we pay all the firefighters, all the volunteers for the time that they put in throughout the year.
All right. Any other questions? Thanks, Scott. Oh, sorry. I thought you had a question. All right.
So for the police departments, just some minor increases, mostly salary and benefits. We did request a $20,000 less in overtime. I think the 12-hour shift is working real well as long as I have a full force. We can do the schedule so that I can send people to training without having overtime. So I'm recommending at least a $20,000 decrease in that. And basically it's 500 here and 1,000 there of decreases. So
My big question was on the reserves, equipment reserves.
yeah, that was a mistake on the line.
Oh,
That'll be corrected.
Okay. But when you say corrected, does that mean it comes out?
It actually is the dog constable is that 6,700.
Oh, okay.
It's just
yeah. So it'll be
it's changed in the lines, correct.
Anybody got anything else on the police department?
Well, thank you. For capital on the police.
Are we going to get into capital now, or are we going to do that all at the end?
I plan at the end.
All right. Yep, that's fine with me. And emergency management, basically the biggest decrease is the line 108.
On Fund 39.
Oh, yeah. That's where it's on the wrong line.
That 6,250 is that was for rent. That was a reimbursement from the state. We no longer can add that for reimbursement. That was an emergency management project grant. And the state, in their infinite wisdom, did away with it. So that was we were paying back ourselves anyway. That was so. Everything else is basically the same.
There must be some lines out of sequence here. I look at line 068, janitorial services, and there's only $400.
Yeah, that should be 1,800.
And the 400 should be up on equipment maintenance.
Correct. Yeah, it was just transposed wrong. That's all.
Chief pointed that out to me this morning, so it's been reflected in the information that's been put out on the web.
Well, maybe it's even changed on these copies, is it? Mine is an earlier copy.
Yours is an earlier one.
Okay. Anybody else, anything on emergency management?
Thank you.
Going back up to Fund 38, Protection. This is the fund where we pay for our streetlights. The biggest expense there is just the anticipated cost for the power with the Amera and Algonquin changes that are being proposed. The hydrant fees, we haven't got anything solid from the utility district that shows that that's going to be going up, but their trend is year over year that it would be going up probably 3%. So we put that in the budget for now.
All right.
Public Works, Fund 40.
So like most, the biggest changes was the stuff that we really have no control of, the wages and the health insurance, the workers' comp. The biggest change in the public works was in the asphalt, where we added $50,000. This is no big surprise. It's the same thing that we've asked for every year. We fund the 2.5 miles of street paving, the 9 miles or 9.5 miles of chip seal, and we should be putting money away for 1 mile of state aid roads, which includes our main drags. We haven't done that for a lot of years. We just fund a project as we go, and I thought it might be easier if we funded a little bit each year towards it. Roads in general, by going back to our full boat program, the PCI scores, or the percentage of good road, is actually starting to come back up again, so that's a good thing. Thank you.
It's good to ask for extra paving and tell us the scores are going up.
What's that?
It's not good to ask for extra paving and then tell us the scores
Well,
are going up in the roads.
Just keep in mind that what we're asking for is for money for our main drags, North Main Streets, Sweden Streets. We're looking to put some money into our gateways coming into town.
My comment for Public Works is the same as the others. I mean, let's get the diesel number and determine the gallonage.
I used the number. I didn't do a percentage. I used the number.
You used a projected number.
I know what we use for fuel, and I can give any department the numbers for their gas or their diesel for any one given year, but our trend for diesel is 44,000 gallons a year if you average it over the last 12 years.
I don't disagree with that, and I know you'll have that. All I'm saying is, what price per gallon are you going to use times the 44?
Dennis would have to look at my notes, but I believed I used $2.25 for diesel.
What is it today?
$2.10. It does get a little more expensive in the winter for what we do, primarily because
I'm looking at the last 2 years, what our actual was in the last 2 years. You know, 2016 was 69.5. This year, after the end of October 25th, we're only at 54,000.
Yeah, we got two heavy months coming though for diesel.
We got 95,000 in for next year's budget. So.
Yeah. Well,
other than that, I don't. You know, heating, fuel, the same thing, and even electricity. I understand the rate increases here, but we're using all those rate increases against the approved budgets from 2017, and in most cases, we're not spending that amount in any of the buildings. So maybe just by maintaining the 2017 budget, we'd be able to take up this increase in the electricity. I don't know. Yeah. Should be looked at. Any other questions for Public Works?
Sherry, I made a comment to DOT on the roads the other day.
We don't have any control over them. You understand that to start with.
Okay, but they're doing a poor job on the roads.
Oh yeah, we agree with that.
And you're hydroplaning. you're taking people's lives in their hands because the cost. I think a person's life is more valuable than.
I understand that completely, but like I say, we can't control what they do.
The Department of Transportation does.
I did get information today that they're looking at doing that coal in place on Presque Isle Road in 2019.
That's the same as what they did on the Port Road?
No, what they've done on 89.
Oh, okay.
That new product that they're using.
Yeah.
I got a memo today from DOT asking if we had any utilities in there or anything that may need to be adjusted, and that will be just like 89. They'll grind the ruts out and they'll put that fertilizer. I like that new product.
Is that just at the compact zone boundary?
No, they're actually going to do 9.5 miles right on the Presque Isle Road, and they're going to start right at the bridge just past Birdseye. And
yep.
They're going to go right into Presque Isle. I can't remember if it was 800 feet from their bridge. It was somewhere closer, but it equaled 9.5 miles for 2019.
All right.
4 inches deep by then.
Rec Department.
Good evening, everyone. As you can see, a few of my lines I had to adjust. One of my biggest lines is the keyed in electrical line. 27 was keyed in wrong last year. That's why you see quite the increase on my electrical line for the rec department. That was keyed in wrong. Didn't catch it before the council approved the budget. So I was able to go till the month of October, but that line's going to be over by the end of the year. Heating fuel, we'll take a look at it, Gary. If you guys would give me permission, I'd like to transfer all the pellets out of everybody else's boilers so I can have them.
Yeah. Somebody might as well use it.
Yeah. So I'd like to use them. Electrical line on Teague Park. As we all know, Teague Park building's going away. So I moved, all of our programs are going to be moved over to Susie. That's why the Susie line on the electrical line has gone up. All of our programs are going to be going over there next year. So there's going to be a lot more usage on that field. Same with the water usage. We're transferring everything over from Teague Park over to Susie Field. Besides that, most of my lines are pretty much the same or reduced a little bit. Anyone have any questions on the rec department?
Anybody any questions on the rec department? All right, go ahead.
Parks. Again, pretty much keeping the same on a few of my other lines. We do have an older building maintenance shop that needs some repairs. I've increased the tool line a little bit. We need some newer tools. We bought those tools back in '96 when the building was purchased or built, so we've been using some pretty old tools and stuff, so we just want to increase that a little bit. Biggest increase on this line is the Civic Beautification. We neglected a few gardens this year, and we need to definitely address them. Fort Street's one of them. We've got the rest of them in pretty good shape, but Fort Street needs quite a bit of addressing. And that's going to be basically mostly mulch and thyme.
Just an explanation I think I understand when I look at this one, but when we talk about salaries, we always talk about regular pay, overtime pay, and salaries. And to me, salaries would be the full-time help, but that's not the case here, correct?
Well, that is no, that's not the full-time help. That's my summer employees and one of my janitors that does a lot of the park maintenance as well.
And in the comments, What's the minimum wage now? What is the minimum wage?
$9, and it's going to $10 in January 1st, and then it goes up again.
January 1st, it's 10?
It's, yeah, we voted on it last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going from 9 to 10, and then 10 to 11 next year, or is it 12? It go
And do we pay minimum wage in these areas? Or what?
a little bit more, just a little bit more. I called around this year and checked around all the maintenance, all the landscape companies, and they're all paying their employees between $10 and $12 an hour.
Any other questions on parks?
Gary, how many parks do we have now? I know we went through this a few years ago. So let's talk about this again.
We have a few.
Yeah.
We have a few.
You've got one
12.
Up off South Main.
We've got the Hardison Park off of South Main. Basically, that's just a landscape area. We maintain the swing sets that are there. Then we've got Balloon Apiece site.
And North Caribou.
North Caribou.
Is that heavily used?
It's, as you see in the capital expenditures, it's going to be more heavily used. It gets used a lot for birthday parties and anniversaries and class reunions.
Floridale?
Floridale is probably our least used park.
Have you ever tried to sell it?
We've talked about it. I mean, we've had some candid conversations about it and stuff, and it doesn't. We can do whatever we want there. We can sell it. It doesn't. I know that Mr. Willett would like to purchase a section of it.
You did purchase this?
No, he'd like to.
Oh.
We just have to look into it. The park has an old fishway through the park. It would be nice to be able to do some historical references to it, but that's on the back burner.
Is there any fish there?
Yes. That brook has a lot of fish in it. A lot of fish.
Anything else? Parks.
As you know, the snow trail maintenance is a pet. On Department 52, the snowmobile trail maintenance, that's a state. We upfront it, and then the state pays out the grant. So I reimburse back the account off of that. Anybody have any questions?
One quick question, Jerry.
Yeah.
Where do you get your diesel down at Public Works?
Yes, I do.
So do the groomers go right down there and fill up?
Yeah. We used to have a side tank, but it was a nightmare. So we take care of it right. We get it right through with Dave's off of the city's tanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Fund 60 is the airport, and for the most part, it's a very small fund that we have, and so any slight increase looks like it's a big percentage, but for the most part, very little increases in the overall fund. There is some bump up for building maintenance. It's flat as far as between the budget years, but some of those buildings are getting a little worn, and property insurance has gone up just a little bit. We'll look into the diesel for this one as well. One of the big items that we have is the air consultant contract and the contract for the FBO on the property. That's actually up, and I'm still waiting for Fresh Air to get me information back on their proposed terms so we can consider that and what they want to do there. I know there was a question earlier tonight about the T-Hanger project, and just really quickly on that, it was determined that the design of the building was flawed, and so they're having to go back and redesign the building as far as its elevation relative to the brand new taxiways that we installed last year and finished that project earlier this year. We have a meeting Wednesday with the designing engineering firm to review the proposed fix for that. So hopefully we can get the building out of the ground again.
Any other questions on the airport?
When are we going to establish the fees for the new facility? We can do it during the budget?
And review the fees for the old one while you're at it, and review the fees for the old one.
We haven't been getting those fees, they go to the FBO.
Right.
This building's not included in that contract.
It is not currently, correct.
So maybe we could, you know, it's pretty pitiful, we only get $138 revenue for $40,000 we spend every year, as the example, you know?
Right. I did send out a questionnaire to the city managers that have airports in the state, asking them what their monthly rental rates are. So we have that for comparison purposes when we have that discussion. Yeah.
Caribou Trailer Park.
This one, the water, we dropped that one down. Just again from historic trends, what we're actually using up there for water, sewer stayed the same. Insurance went up a little bit for the property. It's pretty low cost as far as the overall maintenance goes on it. So,
Biggest money maker in the city. Jeez. We should have, instead of trying to cut this down to nothing, we should have maybe been expanding this previous years. Anyway, cemeteries. Anybody, any questions on the Caribou Trailer Park?
Streetlights. Going up $300.
I believe the 20%, that should have been adjusted down to the 6% instead of the 20%, so I'll make a note of that.
So it should be less than $1,800 next year?
Again, we'll look at the actual electrical usage on those and see if there's anything else.
Right. Thought that was rather high.
Cemeteries.
This fund stayed the same from the last budget. Just a very small payout to some of the cemeteries for their services.
Any other questions on cemeteries? Insurance and retirement.
This, again, for the most part, is workers' compensation. The placeholder for workers' compensation right now is $30,000, but as I understand it, that's if we have to pay anything out or if we get anything back. That depends on their calculation at the end of the year. So we just have a placeholder of $30,000 in there, which is pretty consistent with the trend that we've had historically. And that's the same with the unemployment. We haven't seen the actual numbers yet for those two, so those are placeholders. And everything else is fairly consistent with last year's budget.
Who does this cover for workman's comp and the unemployment compensation?
If you want to try to explain
that are in
that
this
one.
classifieds, their insurance and retirements.
What is it? What did you say?
Who is that for? The costs that we put into here for unemployment compensation and workman's comp. I thought everything got passed through to the
Is this the
departments.
It is. I don't believe we're going to need 30,000.
Okay.
This year, when we have our workers' comp comes in and does a payroll audit every year, and based on the actual payroll, they come up with a number compared to what we actually paid. So either we get a refund back or we have to pay in. This year we had to pay into it because our payroll was higher than what was anticipated. I don't believe that 30,000 is what we're gonna need there. I think we should be pretty spot on this year. And then the
Unemployment the same way? Unemployment compensation?
No, unemployment, those should be running through the departments as well.
Well, they haven't been for the last few years when I look at this, because 2016 there was 21,000 in there, and 2017 there's 13,000 in there already, but I always thought that this was just a place to pass it through.
Yeah, Austin last year ran it through a few of did the workers' comp through the departments, but we didn't run the unemployment, that's correct. We just got those, we haven't gotten those numbers yet from them.
Liability insurance, is that something that we can't pass through? Is that something for?
Yeah, we do pass it through the departments.
Yeah.
This number here is basically for our general, like these buildings and things like that. I can get you a better breakdown if you want of what goes through there.
All right, any other questions on insurance and retirements? Unclassified, Department 80.
Under the unclassified section, we have our tax lien costs. Again, these are our projected amounts going into 20,000. I think the biggest one is probably the abatements. When we tax acquired the Birdseye property, we had committed the taxes on that, and so at some point we need to start taking.
Do we know what the total is unpaid on Birdseye?
I don't know off the top of my head, but when we did that first round of cleanup, we did a special assessment. It was over 50, right? Yeah, and so we assessed those taxes, those cleanup costs to them in their taxes. So now that we've acquired it, we need to abate those taxes.
So
we get to figure what it is in total here, so we know what else we're looking at.
Is that on Birdseye?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little over 50,000.
And we could certainly abate that over multiple years instead of one lump sum.
Section 8.
The FSS program, just a reminder, this is a strictly grant position. This runs in conjunction with the housing program. Something new that we're going to put in there this year is possibly postage, printer, ink, and office supplies. In the NOFA that came out this spring that we're still waiting to hear the results on, HUD is maybe May, we won't know until after the first of the year, maybe allowing us to write off some of the FSS expenses. In the prior years, all it was salaries and benefits only. So this is tentative. I'm hoping to put it in there that the grant will go through for what we're asking. The other thing that they're also saying that for 2018 is they may allow us to ask for an increase over the years past. For this year, the grant was $48,000 and some change. For next year, we're asking for $65,000, so we can count some office supplies, some more training for the FSS coordinator. And this, like the Section 8 program, the city gets reimbursed every month for our office supplies, salaries, and benefits.
I mean, I don't know what will be available if you'll be able to get anything, but if you're going to put it in, you might as well put in for office rent and telephone and everything else.
Well, we're taking it step by step right now, but the office rent, telephone expenses, that comes out of the housing department. Housing pays for the 2 offices.
So housing should probably be paying for the supplies too, like you normally do, right?
We are, but like I said, depending on the NOFA, if the grant goes through the way they worded it in the NOFA next year, we might be able to write off some of the office supplies and training, possibly maybe software expenses that the FSS coordinator needs to do her job. So if the grant goes through the way it's supposed to, and we can write off some of those expenses, then the housing expenses would go down a little bit.
But you don't know you're going to get that.
Correct. We usually don't find out until after the first of the year. Some years it's January, some years we don't find out until March or April.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So and then you're halfway through the year and you find out you're not going to get it grant at all, then what do you do? Right.
It's a gamble we take. We've had the grant for the past 30 years, so it's looking good so far. Any questions?
Yeah, but you didn't have President Trump in the last 30 years.
All set? Thank you.
I guess, Dennis, all we got left is capital, is it?
Right.
Might as well run through that and see if there's any questions of understanding or whatever on here that somebody wants to ask.
So with the, as far as Fund 01 capital improvements, this is again one of the biggest changes that we have in the capital improvements. We're showing an allocation of $100,000. Again, anticipating that that would go toward the bird's eye cleanup, but probably looking if the grants, if we can only get $200,000 in addition to the $100,000 we have, then we're going to have to come up with another $200,000. And this project may span more years, and so we have $200,000 shown in 2018 as an expense, another allocation in 19, and another $100,000 expense in 19 to try to get all of bird's eye taken care of. But really that project is going to be a 3-year project with everything that's involved with that. Certainly if we can get the grant funds, that will reduce the amount of capital allocation to that. Under general government, we do already have almost $22,000 in reserve funds under general government. And so we tried to limit the new allocations to that fund. There is a server that needs to be replaced this year as far as computers go, and 4 computers. We have a rotation schedule. Basically every 4 years the computers are getting replaced. And so you can see that computer line carries on for the next 5 years as we go out because of the schedule that they have for that. Vital record restoration, that's a project that Jane has going, and I'm not going to say anything about that. It's been funded the past few years and it would continue.
I appreciate it. We're able to do with the 2,500 request for this coming year. We'll do about 1 book. And we're doing town meeting minutes now at the end of the 1800s. And they're beautiful, they're preserved and archived for the future. They're permanent records for the city. And we also have them scanned at the same time, so I have a digital copy.
Under fleet vehicles or general government, you can see there's an existing close to $7,600 there. We anticipate needing to replace one of the vehicles in 2021, and so in future years we're showing an allocation towards that future purchase of a fleet vehicle there. Under municipal buildings,
the fleet vehicles?
Basically, we have 2 vehicles now. How old's the Taurus? It's 2000.
One's 2006 and one's 2007.
And how are they holding up?
Mechanically, they're holding up well. We just had to do a four-wheel brake job on the little Chevrolet. The Taurus had some rust issues that...
You fixed that, I saw that.
Yeah, you'll probably get 2 years out of that at best. I mean, once it starts, there's no stopping it, so...
Oh, no, I know. So, we're allocating more money in the budget for transportation. We have money here. Why can't we get another fleet vehicle and...
If you're willing to let us do that, we would certainly entertain it.
We were supposed to probably have gotten one last year, weren't we?
Yes, we were, yeah.
But if those 2 were still good, then I mean, we're putting the money away for that purpose, and we also did that also to cut down on those mileage expenses where we can. I certainly understand there are some places where it's necessary, we're not gonna get around it. But if we can get, you know, one that's in halfway decent shape, well, I know the system, so
Yeah,
I know what we're dealing.
We're always looking for that.
Okay, so that's just my suggestion. If that happens, then we can probably decrease some of those mileage requests.
Any other questions on the capital and general government? Just one comment. I see in 2020 we're planning on the vital records restoration. The expense is going to be $20,000. Are we going to bring somebody in to work on that as well, or?
One of the things we're looking at is to put the city's codes online and have them be maintained by a third party. And so it's just a projection, that something to start looking at.
But is this something that we're going to do with people we have here now, or are we going to have to bring someone in?
No, with a third party group, they host it outside and they take care of it for you. They update all your ordinances whenever they get changed. And
yep.
Under municipal buildings, we have 94,000 in parking lot reserve. I know we talked about improving some of the parking lots, trying to do some added maintenance on that, but we haven't put a cost in there yet for that.
Yeah. So I think for our discussion last year, we decided that I would probably be the best one for the maintenance of the parking lots. Knowing that there's something being done on High Street for 2018, that's why we didn't do anything with the City Hall this year. We did finish up the project at the fire station. We kind of changed things around a little bit there. But anyway, I would, as soon as High Street gets done, I'd like to put some of that 94,000 into the PD's parking lot and the city offices. So if High Street gets done in 2018, I will probably pave City Hall right at the same time.
I think some of the ramp area in front of your fire equipment base probably needs some, or have you been over there?
Fixed it all.
Can we get the DOT to pay half of that city parking lot?
I'm going to fix that section.
Others in municipal buildings, as far as expenses for 2018, we've put a placeholder in there for a boiler and the backup power system. Again, hopefully we can take care of that this fiscal year, but if not, we have it in there for the next year's capital. Under assessment, there was some discussion about the revaluation costs and looking at that long term. There was some discussion needing to increase that amount in order to fund a revaluation effort in 2028. It's projected that we need to start setting aside almost $29,000 a year to pay for that. And I guess I would pose the question, if we can, I know we can hire some part-time staff for $28,500 a year, and that may enable the assessing department to do more of their own quarterly reviews and the things that they can do, so we can avoid that revaluation in 2028. But that's up for you to decide if that's something you want to be setting aside there, or
Key word is may. That may allow. If it doesn't, then we've spent the $28,500 and we're still going to have to do the total assessment.
So that's definitely a question of processes and the capabilities and priority for the assessing department. If that's where you want them to go, then we can look at that. The computers here, this again is for the zoning administrator, looking at a new computer that would be able to handle the GIS and maybe CAD software systems. And so that's the $1,200 there. And the next line, the library.
A CAD program?
AutoCAD.
What do we need that for?
It's a software suite that is used for designing of, you can do it, design buildings or design site layouts.
What do we need that for?
As we start looking at economic development potential of properties, being able to have somebody in-house just quickly drop things in, conceptualizing.
Wouldn't that be what the potential property owner or builder or something like that would have an architect for?
They could go through.
I know it sounds petty, but I just want the answers to the questions, that's all.
Right. So when somebody's ready to pull the trigger, or they think they're ready to pull the trigger, they're going to certainly go through that effort. Usually it helps when the city is, when we're looking at the vision of the future and what could happen there, when we can lay some things out, and we're not talking construction detail design, it's more just looking at the visualization of, can this actually fit? With how can we lay that site out to where it functions traffic-wise or with the building requirements? And so it's being able to visualize more in-house. Is this a reality that can happen? I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Under the library, there again, we've already talked about 2 new computers as far as the rotation system goes, and we already have $43,000 in the building maintenance capital fund. And so it was proposed to begin a project of replacing the building exterior. I don't know if Anastasia wants to address that at all. Or?
Yes. The children's wing exterior is extremely, why don't you get up? I'm sorry. I apologize for sitting down. I'm sorry. I got up at 3 o'clock, so I'm tired.
Yeah, the exterior children's wing, that's greatly deteriorated, including the sash and the windows. Also windows throughout the building. Although I will say I did put a grant in for the Carnegie side of the building to replace the window and sashes, but I think Lisa Shaw tried to do that and wasn't successful. I tried again. But the exterior part of the building is very old and it's rotted in a lot of places. So I put that number in there in hopes that those things can be looked at. That's pretty much what that is.
You haven't had any quotes or anything to give us a real...
No, I did not. I did not. So, no, I didn't.
All right.
Okay.
Under fire and ambulance, their main request this year has been talked about, the turnout gear. Chief Susi has indicated that he's been able to find a deal of getting 10 extra turnout gear for all that they need, plus 10, I guess, for that price of $94,000.
It's a quantity discount is all it is.
The ambulance reserve fund right now has $184,000 in it, and the proposal is to add another $50,000 so that we can fund the purchase of the new ambulance, which the council's already indicated to move forward with. You'll see in the years after that, 19, 20, and so on, allocating additional $50,000 per year into that fund. That's so that in 2020, it's anticipated that there will be a remount of ambulance 24. 2 years after that would be another remount of ambulance 23. And so just looking at trying to be a little more consistent with the budgeting effort, trying to, again, set aside that $50,000 every year so that we can take care of those machines, vehicles down the road as they come up. So those are the 2 main capital.
Where's the money for the new fire truck? It's not in the capital? But we're making payments on it?
Good question. We've moved that down into the debt reserve, or the debt reduction down at the very bottom on line 70. where that is a contracted amount that we have to pay. We just moved it down there as a debt payment, a capital.
Once we sell engine one, the purchase of new engine should be flat. There shouldn't be enough in that sale, but that should be flat. Shouldn't be any effect at all on the budget line.
While I've jumped down to line 70, let me point out that the new ladder truck, that's $117,000 a year, and the last payment for that should be in 2021. One of the things we've been looking at long term is we could then take that 117 and roll that, again for consistency in budgeting, roll that amount into either could go toward the future purchase of an engine truck.
A ladder truck. Replace the engine.
Okay, so roll it into a future purchase of a ladder truck, or we could even look at, depending on what happens with the biomass boilers, the pellet situation, apply that 117 into paying that off faster and just getting rid of that as soon as we can, and then having 234,000, which is basically the boiler expense and the ladder truck expense, rolling that 234 into the fund for the future ladder truck. We actually end up saving over $7,000 in interest by doing that, and can start putting more aside for the ladder truck down the road. So,
which line is for the fire trucks? Is it 01, fire equipment reserve?
No, it's under 70 debt reduction.
The line itself, Phil, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 01.
And that's for fire trucks.
Yeah.
And what's that $94,898 for?
That's the turnout.
That's the
Turnout gear.
Huh?
It's for turnout gear. It's all encompassed in one line. There's never a breakout apparatus. It's all in one line.
So the estimated cost for the 40 sets, right?
44.
Okay, 44 sets is $94,000. Could that be purchased over 2 years?
It could. You lose.
I don't want to jeopardize safety for trying to save money.
No,
or just push it down the road.
No, and we've talked about this before. The problem is we're 15 years into it, so I know I'm going to be working on gears tonight.
No, I think you pretty much answered my question, because I think the average life expectancy is between 5 and 8 years, depending on heavy use or non-heavy use.
Right, and statute says 10 unless you can show documentation of cleaning and maintenance, which we've been able to do, but we've got 15 years out of it, so it's...
So you pushed the limit already.
We've been trying to get grants for 2 years on it. It's just...
But that was under 70?
No, that's...
I'll look at it later. That's all right. Can we subcategorize this stuff so when we're looking at it, we know just exactly what we're paying for here? Because, for instance, turnout gear is equipment, or personnel equipment, or personal protective equipment. It's not, I'd like to know where I'm spending this money. And I have asked this of past managers for the last 5 years or 6 years, and it never seems to happen. So some of these things, and then maybe, just while we're talking about it, take a look at some of the stuff that we're capitalizing for, small equipment and so on and so on. But we don't need to capitalize for. That might just be an annual budgetary expense. Because this, to me, when I look at the capital program, capital means big money, okay, and not computers, not small equipment and stuff like that. That should be in your annual budgeting process. That's all. I think, some of this stuff we build a mountain and we only need a molehill. Thank you.
Let's see. Under police, unless there's any other questions on fire. Under police, again, computers and typewriters. There's
You still using typewriters down there, Mike?
We have two.
You have to, or you have to?
Well, I have two.
Okay.
One is backup for the one that we use all the time for parts.
They don't sell those anywhere.
No.
Paul can't get you one?
No, well, maybe so.
I bet he could.
I've got one if you need a typewriter. I'll save you.
There's only one, our gun permits are the only thing we use the typewriter for.
So the dispatch computer needs to be replaced. There's $1,000 in there for video surveillance equipment. The vehicle computers, there's $2,000 in there to replace vehicle computers. And the chief, his computer is up on rotation, scheduled for replacement. Under small equipment, the $6,640 is $3,640 for body cameras and $3,000 for vests. And then there's a proposed allocation of $2,400 toward future taser replacement, which is anticipated in 2019, and gun replacement proposed for $2,000 this year and next year, and for replacement that was actually looking quite a ways down in the future, 2024, but $15,000 for gun replacement in 2024, and so that's one that we can put a little money away now on each year up to that, or just plan for the larger expense, or larger, well, I can't even talk anymore, larger allocations further down the road. There's a police car that typically gets replaced every year, and so you have money for that, police car reserve. Right now I have them marked out as unknown numbers. These would be new expenses that are associated with the phone system downstairs needing to be replaced. There's already money set aside for that. And the phone or the radio system and I'm not sure what this CAD system is referring to. It's not the design engineering software, but
It's our
dispatch system. It needs to be looked at.
It's our software for it.
And so the radio system and the dispatch system, looking at needing to replace that in 2021, both of those being over $100,000 expenses anticipated. So again, trying to set aside a little now and for each year up to that. That's it for police. Under the protection system, we have here the LED street lights. This is the project that was started last year, looking at the city acquiring the street lights and working with Amera to basically acquire all the street lights, replace those lights with LED lights, and then the city reaping the benefit of the reduced cost of power and making up the difference there of how much we're paying to Amera now with that process. The anticipated cost for that this year with the consultant that's been selected, and when I say selected, it was because this is not just Caribou that's looking at this, it includes Presque Isle, Morris Hill, Limestone, all of these small communities up in Aroostook County. They got together and selected this consultant group, and the indication is they would do this in two phases. One, they would get with Amera, they'd analyze, or they'd go out and ground or field verify all the streetlights that we have compared to Amera's process, verify the wattage in those bulbs, and also look at using a geographic information system. They would do a survey of light need versus currently available or provided, and make recommendations for if we can eliminate some existing street lights or maybe need to put some back in to meet the International Illumination Engineering Society standards that are, it's basically illumination group. And that first phase of the study, they're indicating would be about $40 per light. And Amera shows we have 618 lights. And so that's why that cost is there. Amera also gave me a quote. They've estimated that to purchase the street lights from them would be about $12,000. So we'd have that purchase from Amera after the study is done. And that's why that $24,720 is being shown there. It's after the study is done that we would need to look at, do we actually want to go forward with the purchase of the street lights or from Amera and the replacement of the heads. That could be on the order of $300 to $400 per street light to actually go through that cost. The anticipation being that the savings in electricity makes up for it long term. Any questions?
The question is how long term that's what it's going to be. So.
And this initial phase will give us a breakdown of anticipated savings and being able to work that out.
And even the funding into this should be made up with our savings from the streetlights. So.
Right.
Any estimation when we may break ground?
Break ground on the street lights?
Putting up new street lights.
We're hoping that the first part of next year we'll get through this phase 1 component, so we'll know all the numbers, we'll know how much it's going to cost and the long-term payback and all that. So it's probably going to be end of this next year if the council decides to pull the trigger. I've budgeted in the capital for 2019 being the year that we
do it.
That we actually do it.
So we're still pretty much on track for that?
Yes.
Okay.
In Public Works, they have $113,000 in equipment reserves right now. We're showing an allocation of $110,000 additional so that they can get a trackless sidewalk machine for $130,000 and a new pickup for $5,000 this year. And in years going forward, an additional roughly $120,000 in this equipment reserve, just as they've looked at their equipment that they need over the next 5 and 10 years. And so they're looking at shop equipment, batwing mower, additional pickups, an 8-foot paver in 2020. And so trying to, again, try to just allocate funds consistently throughout the year for budgeting purposes for that. In the street reconstruction, these funds were established. It was anticipated, as I understand it, talking with Dave, that this would be for the major High Street reconstruction project. And it looks like we're not going to need all of that $266,000 for High Street, but we hope to be able to use it on Main Street, or North Main and South Main, with future projects in Sweden Street. And so we've again shown additional allocations into that fund over the years to be able to make that work. Grimes Mill Road, we currently have a deficit of $20,483 in that account. That was primarily for engineering work that was done on that road when it failed, and we just need to clean up that account at some point. At the same time, there are additional edges of the Grimes Mill Road that appear that it may fail in the not too distant future. And so in addition to cleaning up this account to take care of the deficit, the proposal is to begin putting money aside into that account to pay for that additional work that's needed in the future. And then they proposed a new roof on the main building in 2018, and additional roof repairs in 19, and then also working on the salt shed roof in 2020 and 2021. Any questions on that? Public Works?
Dave? I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't some work in 18 that finish it in 19. I put money away in 18 and have the job done in 19. According to the roofing guys, that type of roof that we have was probably a 15-year roof. And we're right on the outside of 29 years now. So one of the things that they did say at this point, no, that's only the main roof. Yeah, it's 29 years old. So the main roof at this point, the insulation is still good. The only fear was that if we let it go out too far, that the insulation will get wet and have to be replaced an additional $25,000. So, but I think we can get 2 more years out of it. We will flat a little bit over years.
Under recreation, the main expense for 2018 is the recreation van reserve. In fact, Gary's working on that this year, I believe. I don't know if you want to say anything else about that.
On November 13th, the next council meeting, I'm going to come and see you guys, see if you approve the purchase of a new van for the rec. Our current 2000 van is no longer allowed to be on the road due to a rotting frame. So, and it was budgeted to put in and get a new van for 2017.
Some of the good calcium they're putting on the roads, killing their vehicles. $80,000 vehicles, $50,000 vehicles, they're gone.
So,
killing the fish.
The community pool, that grant money, not grant money, but is that included in here?
No, it's not in here, but it's in the foundation reserve account for the new splash.
How much is it?
$75,837.68. I look at the check every day.
So are they working on a pool for the kids?
No.
With all that money that they got for it?
We're working on a new splash park when we build the new park.
Okay, Band-Aid.
We're showing that in 2019. We don't expect that much of Teague Park is going to get constructed in 2018.
Correct.
Teague Park's going to be done in 2018?
We don't expect much of it to be started. It's just going to be started next year. Most of the finishing construction will be 2019.
So we're kind of sort of like behind the power curve on the original schedule? Yeah.
Now everything's going to be packaged into one bid process.
Oh, yeah.
So that's it for
Sorry, I'm negative.
recreation. For parks, park improvements in 2018, we anticipate some Teague Park improvement work happening, as well as enhancements to the North Park, roughly $38,000 looking at that. North Park, the things that have been discussed are a new disc golf facility, cleaning up a lot of the facilities that are there now, making that more usable. 30,000 into a new 40 horsepower compact tractor for the Parks Department, and some cleanup, the Civic Beautification Fund. Collins Pond, we anticipate by 2020 being able to move forward with that dam reconstruction and enhancements around that. And so we've right now allocated some funds, starting to put that away toward that project in 3 years. Don't know if you got any other questions on the parks improvements.
When was the last time we spent anything on the ski trail?
I use that fund to repair the snowmobile when we need to repair the snowmobile. Take some of the money out of this account to do the ski trail movement. Any of the equipment that we purchase comes out of this account. Unfortunately, good chance that this winter we will not have the ski trails out to the country club. They're going to be finishing cutting the rest of their property. Last year we had a logger come in around February, and he finished out the rest of the winter cutting. So they want the same contractor to go back in and finish cutting this year, and he'll be on the rest of the trails. So I've got to talk to the contractor, I've got to talk to the country club. This might be a year that we might not have the ski trails at the country club due to the logging that's in there.
That's the only place we have it anyway, right?
That's the only place that we
Right.
maintain community trails, correct. It's hard to work around a skater.
Okay. The Trail Groomer Reserve, we don't have any allocation in there, but those funds come in and basically come out. Is that right, Gary? With the state program that we have.
Program, correct. Municipal grant program.
At the airport, we're currently showing a negative balance of $130,000 under the airport reserve. That is because of the T-hanger project. We have to expend those funds and get reimbursed. And so we have reimbursement requests already into the state and should get a good portion of that money back this fiscal year. But the city's match on the project is $34,306.35.
That's on the hangar project,
That's
correct?
on the hangar project. And so you'll see a lot of funds going out of this line, but we will get reimbursed for most of that. But we are requesting that we set aside enough for the match that we have. And then also begin looking at additional funds being set aside to improve the pad site so that additional hangars can get built on the airport. We've had requests from a couple of different private pilots that would like to build hangars on the airport, but we don't have anything ready for them to start building on.
And that would be under the same way that we engage with Mr. Getz in his hangar?
I suspect we're going to review those terms very carefully, so
okay.
We'll have that same situation.
Yeah, okay. That'll work.
Okay. Under debt reduction, this again, we talked about, we have our scheduled biomass boiler debt that, depending on how we want to deal with the ladder truck funds and applying that toward the debt in the future, you're looking at 2023. If we don't apply any additional funds toward that, it's 2025 would be our last payment on the boilers. But I do have that contract. It's actually up on my computer to look at that very carefully and what we can do to maybe get out of portions of that. The last account is we have $12,186 in current fund balance for the Nylander in a reserve account. I'm not sure if there's strings attached to that fund. No.
Any other questions on the capital improvement?
Not right now.
Well, the way our schedule is right now, we have to have our public hearing on the 13th. Or scheduled to have it on the 13th.
Scheduled to have it on the 13th.
So how long does council feel they need to analyze this and come up with some suggestions on areas that we can either lessen the pain or things that we think we may have to add yet? So,
week?
Week? Sound reasonable?
No more than that.
All right, one suggestion I would make is that maybe everybody make a list of recommendations they have, forward them to Dennis. We did it in a week. That'll be by next Monday. And then maybe we can go through and find out which were the, by the majority that want it to be changed and revise the budget accordingly. So how does that sound?
So meet here Monday.
No,
Well, we have a meeting next month.
we're gonna have everybody put in their recommendations
Is it next month?
to Dennis, and then we'll call a meeting there. We may have a meeting in between now and the 13th, I don't know.
I think that would be wise.
We should have one probably, yeah. And probably right after the recommendations are put in, so maybe we schedule a meeting next week for the Tuesday night or something.
Could
No.
you?
Election night.
Election night?
Tuesday night, yeah.
No, I'm gonna vote early.
Is it possible to get your suggestions by Friday this week? Then I can try to compile it and put it together, and then we
All
can
right.
meet maybe Wednesday next week, or
Yeah.
Oh, that means you gotta work hard now.
I gotta get you
I'm
in.
fine with that.
All right. So everybody get them in by Friday?
Yeah.
And we'll meet, what, Wednesday?
do Wednesday. We could kick it out by Monday next week, or we could meet. I'd probably would like to go over the suggestions with the department heads maybe on Monday, and then we could get to
Plan on meeting on Wednesday then.
Okay.
That suit everybody?
We're here 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Is that the night?
8.
8.
All right. Anything else? Jane has a message here she wants to broadcast to the thousands of people out there listening tonight.
Last time I looked on YouTube, it was 4. Okay. Notice to Caribou and Connor voters. Deadline for requesting absentee ballots is Thursday, November 2nd, this Thursday. Anyone who needs to request an absentee ballot for the November 7th, 2017 election must do so no later than Thursday, November 2nd, 2017 by 7 p.m. We're actually here between 5 and 7 that evening where we could do absentee ballots and register people to vote to be on Tuesday's incoming voting list. Absentee ballots can be issued only after this date due to special circumstances such as inpatient care at the hospital. If you would like to cast your absentee ballot for this election, you must contact the city clerk's office no later than November 2nd. Ballots can be mailed to you, picked up by an immediate family member, or voted in person in the clerk's office. Thank you.
Anything else?
Gary, what would OSHA say about those heating systems that are in the fire department and this other building that aren't working right?
No.
Does OSHA know about this?
It wouldn't be a concern of theirs.
It would not?
It's not a dangerous, if they don't work.
I know.
That's all.
They're not using them.
So they're not being used because they won't work. So it's a lot of money sitting there that's been spent, still spending. And I mean, I still, I know we talked about boards and everything, but I still think that there must be a way to make them work. You've got, augers and so on. It's just a matter of devising the system to make them work together. The one that is there today doesn't do it, but you should be able to do that. And maybe they have some value. Maybe we should be looking at whether we can sell that stuff. In all honesty, if we're not going to use it, we might as well look at what we can get for it now. Like the old cars used to have on them, low hours. That's certainly what these have, low hours. They haven't been used much, just like new.
Out of curiosity, how come Gary's is working fine? What's he
Yeah,
doing
I know.
different?
The question ran through my mind as well.
The line wasn't running correctly until we got into the hopper. There was a rag jammed in the auger. That's why it wasn't feeding. Once we fixed it, I went through my 22 tons of pellets.
But your circuit board hasn't broke yet.
Nope.
Yeah, it's funny that the board there is all right and it's not in any of the others.
So But I'd like to exercise it. While it's still, hopefully it's still gonna be good, because it's been offered. I never ran it last year because I was out, and our past manager wouldn't let me buy pellets because it was cheaper to buy oil. But if we've got, there's probably 65 ton pellets sitting in 3 boilers in pellet.
Yeah.
If Doc can suck them out and bring them to the rack, I'm gonna do it. Oh, obviously there's gonna be a cost, but still, I'd like to
I don't
use
have
them.
many here.
You don't have many? I know this one's full.
We burned it down as far as we could, and then when it died again, that's where we left it.
And I think
It has pellets.
yeah, Anastasia's is
Yeah.
full, and I think this one's full too.
Our machine seized up, it's not just the board, the whole machine seized up.
Anyway, might as well take them out
Yeah.
and use them, but
Definitely.
maybe we should be investigating whether,
The schools have had very good luck with their
They have biomass.
Yes, they got biomass.
Different, it doesn't burn pellets.
I know they don't use pellets, but is there a way that can be retrofitted or something like that? No? Okay.
I had a second.
Good question.
That year that they run here, there was a burner in here constantly.
And I know more about solid fuel burning than anyone should ever have to know. Like, I do it for a living.
We're down there every day.
Every
Press the
day.
buttons.
One night I went in every hour all night long to feed the hopper manually.
Yeah, that's the,
all right. Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn
I make a
here?
motion, we adjourn. Yep, second.
All in
third,
favor?
Fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth.
We're adjourned. Thank you very much for coming, everyone.